Welcome to Intro to Sociology with Monica Casella. This is our second video in the series for social class and stratification. Social class is a large group of people with similar levels of wealth, power, and prestige. Okay, so here you have some terms to differentiate. You have ascribed status, and so that is when somebody is in a social position regardless of anything they did. It's not an earned position, so you can be born into a royal family, for instance, and now you are a prince or a princess. However, you didn't really do anything to put yourself in that position other than be born to the royal family. The achieved status is a social position that a person attains through their own efforts. And so this is like this idea of like a self-made man or the American dream. If you work hard enough, you can get there. We like to look at achieved status as a class system and ascribed status as a caste and a state system. Okay, and here are some terms to let you know a little bit more about how to differentiate between types of systems, stratification systems. So in America, we like to believe that we have an open system, which means a position of each individual is influenced by the person's achieved status. So you can achieve it. People are mobile. That is not a rigid system or a rigid hierarchy, that you can actually move between the different levels. A closed system, on the other hand, allows for very little social mobility. Slavery would apply here. Caste system would apply here as well. So it's also important that you know the difference between income and wealth. So income is money that you are bringing in. This is your salaries, your wages, earned interest from your savings accounts or bonds that you may have. These are stock dividends, anything that you bring in. Money-wise. So wealth, as opposed to income, is your material assets. And so this is not actually income. This is the things that you own, like property or anything of value that is actually a material asset. Okay, so here's a word we don't talk about every day. We're talking about prestige. And so prestige is the respect that an occupation holds in society. And characteristics of prestigious jobs are higher pay, they require a higher education, some require greater self-direction. Now that differs from esteem, which is the reputation that a specific person has earned within an occupation. So an example would be Donald Trump, depending on which side of the river you're on. You may not hold Donald Trump in high esteem. You may think that he has a bad reputation as president. However, that doesn't change the level of prestige he has, because the office of president is just naturally prestigious, regardless of who is actually in that role. So here is a slide that usually catches the attention of students. Are there any occupations on here that surprise you as far as the level of prestige? I'm surprised that elementary school teacher is above correctional officer or carpenter. But these are responses that were collected by the GSS, the General Social Survey, in 2015, which is a pretty high reputable social research group. It may also surprise you to see the amount of wealth and income inequality we have in the U.S. So these are some figures from 2018 from the Census Bureau, and I pulled out the lowest fifth quintile of the population. So this would be the population that made the least amount of money. Then I also pulled out the third quintile, which would be the people in the middle. Then I also pulled out the highest fifth, which would be the people that made the most. And then the top 5% is the top. So these are the people that make the most, brought in the most income over these years. And so you can see over the years how 2003, it just continues to grow. It looks like 2009, it went down a bit. And I bet that is because of the housing market crash. But it doesn't look like they took too much of a hit, and it just continues to skyrocket. But if you look at the blue bar, that is the lowest fifth. It doesn't really seem like it moves that much. Yeah, it doesn't go down. The people in the lowest fifth are still doing better than they did in 2003. However, they're not doing nearly as well as the top 5%. And so there is a gap. And within household income, you kind of want to see, you'd like to see in a healthy economy, it would be a little bit closer together than it is currently. I don't know what the 2019 numbers are, but it will be interesting to find out. So 54% of wealth in the United States is controlled by a very, very small percentage of families. So according to this chart, the richest 3% of families controls the nation's 54% of the nation's wealth. So again, we have 7% of families control 21% of the nation's wealth, and then the bottom 90%, the bottom 90 of families control about a quarter of the nation's wealth. So there is definitely a difference here. Everybody thinks that they're middle class. So researchers have developed this objective method to class according to their occupation, education, income, and place of residence. So, because if everybody was to report what social class they were a part of, the majority of us would probably say middle class. Interesting enough, there was a study in 2019 by Yale researchers that conducted 5 different experiments. And the first 4 looked at how people could accurately determine social class based on just 15 to 20 seconds of speech. And so they could hear 7 random words recited, and that was enough for people to perceive the speaker's social class with an accuracy that was above chance. The words were and, from, thought, beautiful, imagine, yellow, and thee. So pay attention to how you pronounce those words. You may have heard this term before, socioeconomic status. It's the measure of social class based on income, education, and occupation. This is very similar to the objective method. Now we're going to discuss the characteristics of social classes in the United States. Please bear in mind that these are generalizations, meaning that it's just the general trends and it doesn't apply to everybody. So this is the upper class. So these are your aristocratic high society families that have had money for generations. Sometimes they're called old money. The upper class, they earn their incomes from managing and investing their wealth rather than engaging in wage labor. So this is like investing in the stock market or in real estate or in oil. They also have been estimated to constitute about 1% of the population. It's a highly exclusive class. It's hard to become a member. Actually, you have to be born into an upper class family and raised in a particular manner to understand their upper class values, their traditions, and their cultural norms. And so this is a highly exclusive group. Some of the families that you might have heard of are the Koch family, Mars family, the Waltons, Rothschilds, Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Cargill, Macmillan, Kennedys. In our area, this would be the Cullens and the Moody's, if you've ever heard of Moody Gardens. So, yeah, that's the upper class. The lower upper class, this is your celebrities and your corporate elite. These are often self-made millionaires in prestigious occupations. And there is this kind of idea that there's a conflict between the upper class and the lower upper class, with the upper class saying that it doesn't matter how much wealth you have, you don't belong in this class because you were not born into it, and the lower upper class thinking that the upper class is lazy and snotty because they did not actually make the money themselves. They just inherited the wealth of their family. And so this is a common idea between old money and new money, this conflict, but we've actually not studied whether these depictions are actually true. It's really hard to access this group. Here is the upper middle class. These are the highly educated, often with graduate degrees, professionals. They're upper management. They typically own their own homes. Their kids are expected to go to college. They also tend to be married. These upper middle households have incomes ranging from $75,000 to above $100,000 a year. They are comfortable, but they're not unusual in their wealth or their status. Here is your lower middle class. So this is your semi-professional or craftsman with roughly average standards of living, white collar, may own their own homes. They also typically have some college education and are identified as the good citizen, good citizenship. The working class is the largest class segment. These are your blue-collar workers, those whose jobs are highly routinized with very low economic security. The average income is between $26,000 and $40,000, although income is not the best indicator for class. These members of the working class have high school educations, and yeah. So the working poor, this is your lower skilled worker, those who occupy poorly paid positions or rely on government transfers. There's a high degree of economic insecurity, meaning that they're always at risk of losing their jobs or looking for a job, or they're out of work. They have a very high risk of poverty, often falling below the poverty line. Some do not have high school educations. So like I said before, these are generalizations and they don't apply to everybody. This is what we're talking about when we talk about social class. And social class is important because it has implications for the quality of our lives. So in the next video, I will discuss those implications. So I hope this was helpful.